Okay, so this is Hunting Snake by Judith Wright. Sun warmed in this late season's grace, under the autumn's gentlest sky. We walked, and froze half through a pace. The great black snake went reeling by. Head down, tongue flickering on the trail, he quested through the parting grass. Sun glazed his curves of diamond scale, and we lost we lost breath to watch him pass. What track he followed, what small food fled living from his fierce intent, we scarcely thought, and still as we stood, our eyes went with him as he went. Okay, this is probably my least favourite poem in the anthology. It's simple, but that's about all I can say about it. But I'll go through it. You don't really have to like it. All of the poems. Don't really have to say you like the poems. Really, your job is to analyse how they create a particular effect, how they communicate the message of the poet. And it's very simply, this is a poem about someone, the poet with another person, maybe a partner, maybe a friend, doesn't really matter, and they see a snake, and the snake slithers past, and then the snake goes, and then they carry on walking. There are far better poems about snakes. D.H. Lawrence's poem Snake springs to mind, which is one of the most beautiful poems of the 20th century, and this to me pales in comparison. But I won't. I'm not really can't say bigging it up, can I? I'm too old for that. I'm not really selling it to you, am I? But I'll go through it. It won't take me very long because there's not a great deal to say. Okay, so we'll just look at this first line. Sun warmed in this late season's grace. Again, there's that link to that sort of religious element. The grace is the grace of God. Grace is that which God gives us, which it's hard to really explain. That enables us to live our lives well. And so the late season's grace, maybe the warmth, it's giving them a sense of optimism. That in the way that the grace of God would give us the strength to live our lives, the warmth of the sun is giving them a sense of relaxation, maybe, of happiness. And the autumn's gentlest sky, I think that links in there. There's the sort of happiness that they're feeling. It's a very positive opening to those first three lines. And then we've got the link, the contrast between the warmth and grace to this word here, froze. So you've got this kind of direct contrast between the positive energy they're feeling here, and all of a sudden they're freezing, half through a pace. It's as if they've stopped because they've seen this snake. It's an interesting word to use, reeling. Now I would say, being the picky teacher that I am, I would say that she's falling into the trap that Alan Kernow talks about here, of using words to sound poetic. How does a snake reel? For me, reeling is kind of spinning by. That would be the last word that I would use to describe a snake. But she uses it, so there must be a reason. But for the life of me, I can't work out why. Head down, tongue flickering on the trail, quested through the parting grass. I quite like that word. That word works for me. The idea of questing, that searching. That there's this sort of movement forward, this kind of slithering movement forward, as the grass parts for the snake, and then this rather nice image of the sun glazing the curves of diamond scale. So there's that sort of natural beauty there, and I think it's the way in which the sun picks up on that beauty and illuminates it. And lost and then you move into the end of this second stanza here. They lost breath to watch him past. I didn't read the last stanza, did I? It actually does get better. I'll come on to that in a moment. So lost breath to watch him past. That they're in awe. As I said, read. You need to read. Very interesting poem which I think is worth reading. It's quite useful with literature. Remember, you do have to have that sense of understanding of context. You know, the poems that have informed the poet, when the poet wrote, the things that interest the poet, the things that the poet was used as influences. And I get a sense when I read this poem that there is there's something of Lawrence in the background. Wright was not writing much after Lawrence. She's kind of middle of the 20th century. Lawrence was near the beginning. So, you know, Lawrence would have been very much a part of that movement of poets that Judith Wright would have known about and read. And I get a feeling that there's an influence here. As I said, better poem. Obviously, you know, in my opinion, I mean, I need to say that. In my opinion, D.H. Lawrence's poem is better. What track he followed, small food fled living from his fierce intent we scarcely thought. So the poet is not thinking here. The poet has stopped thinking because of the beauty of and the power and the majesty and the terror of the snake. And they're standing still, that linking into lost breath there. You know, that they're in awe of the snake. Our eyes went with him as he went. What, he took their eyes? Sorry, I'm being really picky here, aren't I? That just irritates me. How can he? What, does he take their eyes with him? Ridiculous. That sort of thing bothers me about poetry. I'm not sure why this poem's in the anthology, but there we go. Cold, dark and splendid he was gone into the grass that hid his prey. We took a deeper breath of day, looked at each other and went on. I like that, actually. Maybe I'm being a little bit overly harsh. There's that recognition there. I think it's the sense of recognition that they've witnessed something important, something which is bigger than themselves, thinking back maybe to Hopkins and the glory of the God and glory of the world, that there's something important that they recognise, and then they move on, their lives go on. So really it is a very simple poem. I mean, if you got this in the exam, it's a pretty simple one to write about, isn't it? They see a snake, they're in awe of the snake moves on, and maybe the snake makes them kind of recognise something of the beauty of the world and the power of the world, and maybe their insignificance when they're confronted with something which is just so perfect. You might want to look at also Ted Hughes's Pike, actually. That's a good one. Actually, just to be really confusing, I'm just going to go back to all the way back here. Where are we? Oh no, this one, to Continuum. Have a look at Ted Hughes's The Thought Fox here, because it's about writing poetry. Sorry, that's just a complete aside, isn't it? Because we're not looking at that poem at the moment. We're looking at this one. So yeah, look at Ted Hughes' Pike and Snake. The Pike is a poem about the perfection of the pike as a killing machine, and you get a slight sense here of this perfection of the snake as well. Very simple structure, 4-line stanzas, ordered, a bit like Kernow, that she's somehow through her writing ordering nature, and then you've got the ABAB rhyme scheme all the way through, ABAB CD. Interestingly though, you've actually got that one and that one and that one and that one. Look, you've got the change of rhyme scheme at the end. Clever. Is it deliberate? Yes, of course it is. It's a sense of change of movement, recognition. You know that once the snake's gone, somehow that kind of order changes and moves on. So that's Judith Wright's Hunting Snake, and that was a fairly short screencast.